Welcome to Allies or Enemies. This time we are talking about Planet Unknown. Designed by Ryan Lambert and Adam Rehberg, Planet Unknown plays for 1 to 6 players in roughly an hour. Planet Unknown is a tile-placing, track-cube-moving, terraforming adventure in which players will be simultaneously drawing tiles from a lazy, or in this case, a fairly hard-working Susan, and then putting those onto a bunch of boards and moving cubes up the paths of one of a bunch of corporations. And let's just get this out of the way right up front. It is awesome. But in what way specifically is it awesome? Well, let's start with how it plays.
Your goal in Planet Unknown is to fill your planet board with tiles while getting your various trackers as high as you can and fulfilling a couple of game end objectives. To do that, players take turns pointing one pair of tiles at their marker and then drawing one of those two tiles. At the same time, every other player will also choose a tile from one of the two sections in front of their own markers, and then everyone will simultaneously place their tile and advance on the two tracks that correspond to the tile's pairs of terrain. Each of these tracks lead to something a bit different. Biomass gains patches which fill single holes. Tech gives access to various powers. Water offers the most endgame points as well as extra synergy bonuses that let you move up the other markers. Civ lets you gain Civ cards which provide various extras, and the rover track lets you drive your rover around the planet gathering meteorites and life pods. There's also a sixth terrain type, energy, which is a wild card. Players keep choosing and placing until either someone can't place a tile or one of the tile depots is empty. Then you add up points from Civ cards and tracks as well as various rows and columns on your board, collected meteorites and life pods, and points from public objectives, and you see whose interplanetary terraforming corporation is the best.
We do have the deluxe version of the game, so some components might be different in the retail version, but in the version we have at least, things are pretty darn nice. Let's start with the star of the show, the Lazy Susan, or Space Station if you will. You don't have to. This is one of those things that makes you wonder why nobody thought of it sooner. Yes, it looks cool, but the functionality of it as a way to get everyone draft at once is terrific. Plus, it moves smoothly and is easy to get pieces in and out of. The boards are all good as well, especially the corporation boards, which are triple layered to hold the cubes of the corporations on both sides. A point of contention is the plastic bits, which have a finish that makes them look a bit worn and dirty. We actually like this style and think it works, but it will definitely depend on your taste. One thing that won't depend on taste, however, is that the box is too small for this stuff, which means Planet Unknown is a bit of a pain in the butt to store, as you won't want to put stuff on top of it and it needs to stay horizontal. It is a weird little misfire in an otherwise stellar production.
The box says 1 to 6, and it is absolutely right. Because everyone chooses a tile and plays a tile every turn, the player count really doesn't matter, and because you can only choose between 2 tiles each turn, there's very little opportunity for AP. And the interaction won't change that much because it's pretty much just in the objectives, and you only compete with your neighbors there anyway. The biggest difference will be in the 2-player game, where instead of having the objectives between you and your neighbor, you have 3 out in the middle, which is a little bit more to watch. The rules for 2-player also suggest a variant where you rotate the space station 1 spot clockwise each round. We tried this once and it fell flat for us. After more than a dozen 2-player games, we haven't seen any reason not to just play like normal and switch captains back and forth. There is also a solo mode, which is excellent. Here you do have to do that 1 slot clockwise variant, as well as use the event deck, which provides you with either bonuses or challenges each round. You can customize this deck for different difficulty levels as well by adding or subtracting more of the easy green, medium orange, or hard red cards to make up your deck of 20. It is a target score challenge rather than an AI opponent, but with all of the possible permutations, there are a lot of ways to take it on.
Speaking of those permutations, there are a lot of them, including the starter ones. The deluxe version of the game has 13 different planet boards and 9 different corporations. That is a lot of combinations. You could play this game more than 100 times without ever playing the same combo twice. And that is extra interesting when you look at just how different all of these are. You have planets with holes and poison clouds, and fissures that block your rovers, a planet that makes you slide in your tiles like Tetris pieces, another one that restricts what can go in each quadrant, and one that is 3 planets instead of 1. Some of these are harder than others, but they generally all have their pluses and minuses and make for fun challenges. And the corporations have the same amount of variety, if not more, with each board pushing you to play in different ways, like using an army of rovers to collect meteorites, placing life pods on your board, or following a crazy water track that zigzags everywhere. They are so different and interesting that you will want to play with every one of them.
We love Planet Unknown. This is a game that will be a staple on top 10 lists at the end of this year, and for good reason. It's fast, it's addictive, it has a ton of variety, and it has a sneaky amount of depth for a game with very few rules that is constantly asking you to make fairly small decisions. On most turns, you are only choosing between 2 tiles and then adding 1 tile to your board, but because of the tracks and the rovers and the various extra powers, those small decisions are always interesting. This is one you can introduce to brand new players, but will still interest most hardened gamer vets. And you can have the experienced players take on the harder corporations and boards while the newbies stick to the starter set and still have a game that totally works for everyone and meets different players at their levels. Plus, that Lazy Susan is awesome. There are a couple of caveats though. First of all, it is pricey, especially for the weight of the game and especially when you're probably going to want the deluxe for those extra corporations and planets. And also, the box thing is honestly a bit of a downer, but even if you don't end up buying this is definitely one that we would suggest taking for a spin. And that is it. Have you played Planet Unknown, and what are some of your other favorite tile placement games? And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully we will see you all next time for another game.